Welcome to the British Museum, one of the world's most visited museums. Attracting more than 6 million visitors every single year, founded in 1753, it was the first national public museum in the world, and it opened to the public in 1759 with just 71,000 objects. Today it holds more than 8 million items covering 2 million years of human history. And the best part, entry is free, just as it has always been. Inside, you can travel across civilizations from Mesopotamia to Greece, from Americas to Africa, but today we are heading straight into one of the most iconic collections, the Egyptians galleries. A place where you stand face to face with pharaohs, gods, and ordinary people who lived 5,000 years ago. Let's step back in time together. Ancient Egypt stretched for more than 1,000 kilometers along the river Nile, a ribbon of green in the middle of endless desert. Without the Nile's annual floods, which left behind rich black soil, there would have been no Egypt at all. The Greek historian Herodotus once called Egypt the gift of the Nile, and he was right. This river sustained farming, trade, and travel for thousands of years. The civilization itself lasted for over 3 millennia, from around 3100 BC, when the first pharaoh Narmer united Upper and Lower Egypt, to 30 BC, when Cleopatra, the last pharaoh, died and Egypt became part of the Roman Empire. Just think about that. 3,000 years. That's longer than the time that separates us today from the fall of Rome. During that time, the Egyptians built pyramids taller than cathedrals, temples carved into cliffs, and statues that still inspired awe today. The Egyptians. The Egyptians, they invented one of the earliest writing systems, advanced medicine, and a calendar. Yes, calendar that helped them predict the Nile floods with remarkable accuracy. But perhaps their most lasting legacy is their deep belief in afterlife. Afterlife. The idea that that was not the end, but a transition into eternity. That belief shaped almost everything we find in this gallery. Here we are at the museum's most famous treasures, the mummies. For the Egyptians, death wasn't something to fear. It was a journey to the another world. But to survive in the afterlife, the body had to remain intact. And that's where mummification came in. The process took up to 70 days. First, the body was washed and purified. The internal organs were carefully removed and placed into canopic jars, each guarded by one of Horus' four sons, with the head of jackal, a falcon, a baboon, or a human. The heart was usually left inside because it was believed to be the seat of the soul. The brain, surprisingly, was pulled out through the nose with a hook. Yeah, you heard it right. Pulled out through the nose with a hook. Egyptian thought it was useless. That's what it was. So, yeah, it's funny, right? The body was then dried with a natron salt, packed with linen, and wrapped in layers upon layers of bandages, sometimes more than 150 meters long. You heard it right, 150 meters long bandages. Priests recited spells during the process, ensuring that the deceased would be protected. Over the wrappings, masks and amulets were placed, such as the Eye of Horus for health or the scarab beetle for rebirth. Finally, the body was placed in a decorated coffin, often painted with gods, hieroglyphs, and protective spells from the Book of the Dead. Some of the mummies here are over 3000 years old. 3000 years old. Imagine. Imagine people who once walked along the Nile, farmed the fields, or served in the court of Pharaoh, now preserved in front of us. Mummification was not only for kings. The British Museum shows us that ordinary people were also embalmed, though with less decoration, but yeah, it was for the normal people also. This reveals how deeply rooted the belief in the afterlife was in all the levels of Egyptian society. The craze for mummies in Europe in the 19th century was so intense that wealthy Victorians actually held mummy unwrapping parties where ancient coffins were opened for entertainment. A practice shocking to us today, but a reminder of how much fascination Egypt has always held at that time. So, yeah, they were just doing mummy unwrapping parties where ancient coffins were opened. Now let's talk about little bit jewelries and daily life section where the girls and ladies are more interested in. Egyptians loved beauty and they believed beauty was sacred. Gold wasn't just a precious metal, it was considered the flesh of the gods. Flesh of the gods. In the museum, you will see rings engraved with hieroglyphs, necklaces of turquoise and lapis lazuli, bracelets inlaid with carnelian, and protective charms in the form of scarabs or the Eye of Horus. Each piece had meaning. It wasn't simply decoration. Now, women and men both were cosmetics. They used kohl eyeliner not only for style but also as protection against the desert sun and eye infections. They perfumed their hair with cones of scented wax that slowly melted in the heat. Daily life objects also survive, such as mirrors of polished bronze, ivory combs, tiny amulets carried in pockets, even toys for children, shaped like little animals, show us a human side of this civilization. And of course, the Egyptians adored their animals. Cats were sacred to the goddess Bastet, and harming one was considered a crime punishable by death. Dogs, monkeys, and even baboons appear in art, showing the close bond with Egyptians had with nature. For most of its history, Egypt didn't have coins. The real currency was grain, bread, and beer. Workers who built the pyramids were paid in food rations. Archaeologists found records listing exactly how many loaves and jars of beer were distributed. Egypt's location made it a trading hub. From Nubia in the south, they imported gold and ivory. From Lebanon, they bought cedar wood for ships and temples. From the Mediterranean, olive oil and wine flowed with Egypt. Coins arrived only after Alexander the Great conquered Egypt in 332 BC. Under the Ptolemies, coins minted in the Alexandria carried images of Greek rulers, blending Egyptian and Hellenistic traditions. These small objects show us how the Egypt connected to the wider ancient world. Egyptians left behind thousands of inscription, guys, thousands of inscription, prayers and carvings. Hieroglyphs, meaning sacred carvings, were written on temples, tombs, and papyrus scrolls. For centuries, nobody could read them. The secret was broken thanks to Ro- Rosetta Stone, Rosetta Stone, discovered in 1799. The stone carried the same text written in Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphs. Using it, the French scholar Champollion finally cracked the code in 1822. This allowed us to read everything from royal decrees to shopping list. We learned that Egyptians wrote love poems, jokes, and even complaints about lazy workers. Yeah, it's right. It's funny, but yeah, complaints are there also. One inscription reads, "Behold, my heart longs for your love, like the field longs for water." Another was written by a scribe frustrated with a co-worker. "All you do is drink beer while I do the work." These voices remind us that Egyptians weren't distant gods or myths. They were people with humor, romance, and frustration just like us. The statues here are more than stone. They were believed to be vessels for the god themselves. Pharaohs were depicted as giants seated on thrones gazing into eternity. Ramses II, known as Ramses the Great, ruled for 66 years and left behind more temples and statues than almost any other king. The gods were often shown with animal heads. Anubis, the jackal, guiding souls to the afterlife. Horus, the falcon, symbols of kingship. And Sekhmet, the lioness, fierce protector. Temples were not just place of prayer, they were cosmic maps. The temple of Karnak, for example, aligned with the rising sun of specific times of year. At Abu Simbel, the sun illuminates the inner sanctuary only twice annually, on the pharaoh's birthday and coronation. Every carving had meaning, every angle aligned with the stars. To the Egyptians, their monuments connected heaven and earth. Now let's talk about how artifacts came to London. Most of these treasures arrived in London during the 19th century, when Egypt was under Ottoman and later British influence. Explorers like Giovanni Belzoni used brute force to move colossal statues, sometimes dragging them across the desert with hundreds of workers. Some objects were gifted, others purchased, and some taken during excavation when Egypt lacked the power to control the heritage. Today, Egypt asks for many pieces, including the Rosetta Stone, to be returned. The British Museum argues that keeping them here allows millions from around the world to see them. It's a difficult debate. Do we prioritize global access or culture ownership? This question continues to shape the future of museums worldwide. Walking through these galleries, you realize ancient Egypt wasn't just about pyramids and mummies. It was about people. Farmers harvesting grain by the Nile, children playing with toys, artists carving jewelry, priests chanting spells. Every object tells a story of love, faith, ambition, and the quest of immortality. For me, standing here, I think of this 5,000 years ago. Egyptians looked up at the same sun we see today. They built, dreamed, and loved, and somehow, across the centuries, we are still connected. This was just one gallery of the British Museum. In the next vlog, we will continue our journey through London's historic and culture. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and let's explore together.